With CitizenCon just days away, we're on the brink of some huge announcements. But before we dive into the excitement, let's catch up on the 3.24.2 patch updates, the latest on server meshing, and what Evocati testers are saying about 4.0. We've got it all covered, so let's get started. Welcome back to Last Week in the Verse, your weekly recap of everything happening in Star Citizen. We're on the countdown to CitizenCon, and while I won't be able to watch the events live each day since I'll be working, you can bet I'll be catching up as soon as I can. But until then, we've got plenty to cover. This week, we're diving into the most recent patch updates for 3.24.2, the latest updates on server meshing, and some inside information on what Evocati testers have been experiencing with 4.0. So let's jump right into it. Now, CIG has been rolling out multiple updates this week, bringing us one step closer to a live release. These patches focus on refining gameplay, improving ship systems, and fixing bugs across the board. On Sunday the 6th, the team started by adding some interesting gameplay tweaks. They walked back a decision to remove the ability to fire multiple weapon groups using different buttons, and instead added the ability for players to fire weapon groups independently of their selection, which should give pilots more flexibility in combat and still enable players to have up to 4 different weapon fire keys. The Origin 400i received an atmospheric flight improvement polish, and several ships had their MFD materials and shaders updated for better clarity and visual quality. It's always nice to see improvements in ship handling and cockpit visuals. Even small details like these matter in Star Citizen. When it comes to weapons, CIG made several key adjustments. Rifles like the Karna and the P4AR received updates to their damage and recoil, making them more consistent at long ranges. The Karna in particular now deals more damage and has a larger magazine size, shifting it into a high-skill, high-reward weapon category. Now this should give players more options for range combat. At the same time, SMGs were smoothed out, with aim recoil and return times tweaked for better control and visual consistency. This means that both rifles and SMGs should feel much more reliable in combat. Meanwhile, sniper rifles like the P6LR had their damage fall-off distances increased, allowing for more viable long-range shots, something players have been asking for. Moving to bug fixes, the team tackled several critical issues. For instance, they resolved the bug that caused ships to fall through hangar elevators upon retrieval, which was a pretty major problem for those trying to launch ships. They also fixed the grayed out elevator panels in the PU, and the EMP QED issue where the systems could be powered on, but not fired. These fixes will significantly improve the overall quality of life for players. By Monday, they released the PTU to Wave 2. CIG mainly addressed more bug fixes, including the ASOP terminal issue that prevented players from retrieving their ships, and also some visual glitches on Ariel, which had sections of the planet's surface missing entirely. While these may seem like small issues, they go a long way in improving the gameplay experience. On Tuesday, the real action began with the quantum travel overhaul. This update made large adjustments to quantum travel speed, acceleration, fuel storage, and fuel consumption across all ships. The goal here was to better balance long and short-range distance travel, making each ship quantum capabilities feel more distinct. Now with this change, it introduced a bug where the cost of quantum fuel was drastically higher than before. And this was later confirmed to be a bug, but that didn't stop many content creators from speculating that this was a for sure thing that was going to happen for the future of the game. Honestly, this is precisely why I don't like to make knee-jerk reaction videos, because things are subject to change. And especially in the case of the PTU, things can change really quickly. Some things that may seem like they're changed end up actually being a bug, or they find out that it didn't work very well, so they change it back. This rework is particularly important for those who rely heavily on long-range missions, as it brings more nuance to how fuel is used and stored. Additionally, ship cannons received a balance pass, reducing both their ammo capacity and regen rates to balance them against repeaters. Honestly, this explains why I think my Zeus is completely trash, because it takes forever for the cannons to regenerate. I think I might switch to repeaters from now on. This change should make combat more tactical, with fewer opportunities to spam high damage attacks. By Wednesday, the PTU opened up to all waves, and more MFD and HUD polish was introduced. Ships like the RSI Zeus had their lighting improved, with better internal illumination to help with visibility. CIG also fine-tuned the HUD across several ships to make cockpit information clearer and more legible. Performance remained somewhat stable throughout, with more bugs being squashed as the week progressed. On Friday, we saw a big push for UI readability improvements, focusing on holographic MFDs and other HUD elements. The goal was to make critical information easier to read, even in high-pressure combat situations. Refueling times for quantum and hydrogen fuel were also temporarily set to be instant. Meanwhile, the RSI Mantis received a much-needed polish pass on its MFDs, bringing them into line with other RSI ships. By Saturday, the Save Stanton global event playtest kicked off, alongside more HUD and marker decluttering optimizations. The focus was on removing unnecessary information from players' screens while keeping essential markers like hostile targets, objectives, and nav points visible. This decluttering should make combat and navigation feel less overwhelming, while still providing all of the necessary data. Additionally, new ships and vehicles were added to the shops, including the Mirai Pulse, RSI Ursa Medevac, Argo Atlas, and the Aegis Saber Firebird. Now, while I absolutely love the design of the MFDs and the overall HUD rework, there's something that's been bugging me. The critical information, the stuff that you need to access at a glance, is just not there in the same way that it used to be. You really have to look for it, almost search for the info you're trying to find, which takes away from the quick glances that we're used to. It looks amazing, don't get me wrong, but in terms of functionality, it falls short. For example, in combat or any fast-paced situation, you no longer have that ease of glancing at your HUD to quickly pick up what you need. Instead, you're spending more time figuring out where the critical data is located. I think that while CIG has nailed the visual style, they'll need to go back and make some functional adjustments. These MFDs need to be as informative as the old ones were, while maintaining that sleek, updated design. Now, it is a step in the right direction, but there's definitely more work needed to make it truly effective. If you've found this breakdown helpful so far, now might be the perfect time to hit that subscribe button. Every week we dive deep into Star Citizen's updates, game mechanics, and latest news in the verse. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the latest patch breakdowns or any new features being announced. Plus, it really helps the channel grow and allows me to keep delivering this kind of content straight to you. So if you're enjoying the ride, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more. Now, I've got some really mixed feelings about the recent nerf to the Drake Corsair. On one hand, I've felt for a while that the Corsair was pretty overpowered. A multi-crew ship like the Corsair should really require a full crew in the turrets to be as effective as it was, and I understand that it needed balancing. Now, I know that that's a really unpopular opinion, but I do believe that whether you have players or even NPCs manning the turrets, the ship should need it. There needs to be some type of balance when it comes down to it, so that grabbing a large ship to dominate all ships isn't the go-to decision. I really want ships to fill specific roles, and multi-crew ships should be support ships that are dangerous to fighters and other multi-crew ships, but with the turrets manned. Having a ship that could dish out that much damage with one person controlling it was a bit excessive. But on the flip side, I can totally see why a lot of players are upset, especially those who love this ship and feel that the nerf took away some of what made it special. The thing is, the way in which it was nerfed doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Originally, the pilot had full control of 4 size 5 weapons and 2 size 4 weapons, making it a real powerhouse. But now, by removing control of 2 of the size 5 weapons and handing them over to the co-pilot, it's not really encouraging multi-crew gameplay. It's actually almost doing the opposite. It feels like this change is pushing players to just melt their Corsair and buy something else instead. Now, if the goal was to encourage teamwork, this change really missed the mark. Personally, I think a better approach would have been to reduce the weapon sizes from 4 size 5s down to size 4s across the board. This would have still reduced the ship's DPS, but it would have felt more like a natural balance for a ship in this class. As it stands, the Corsair still has insanely high damage output, even after this change, and I'm not sure that this adjustment really solves the problem. Hopefully CIG reconsider this and return control of the non-turreted weapons back to the pilot. And ultimately, they need to address all of the multi-crew ships that have co-pilot seats. Co-pilots should have meaningful tasks, like being able to switch control between the pilot and co-pilot, or scanning ships without needing to aim directly at them. There's so much potential here for co-pilots to handle additional tasks beyond just taking control of extra guns. And that's the direction I'd like to see CIG head in. Now on to server meshing, which continues to show a lot of potential as CIG runs more ambitious tests. On the day of the test, they started with a baseline of 1 server and 100 players, a relatively straightforward test that performed as expected, with no major issues. This gave CIG a solid foundation to work from as they ramped things up. Then they jumped to 6 dedicated game servers and 1,000 players on a single shard. This is where things started to get more interesting. During my own test runs, I encountered a few issues, like falling through the planet after calling an elevator, but things eventually smoothed out a little bit. After all, I was able to successfully revive after dying, something I really wasn't able to do during the last test. By my 3rd attempt, I was able to fly from Crusader to ArcCorp without any hiccups. Server transitions were seamless, and there was 0 interaction delay, which, let's be honest, is a huge improvement from past tests. There were no crashes on this attempt, and everything felt surprisingly stable. It's clear that CIG is ironing out many of the stability issues that we've seen in earlier server meshing tests. After this, though, CIG ran an even bigger test, 10 dedicated servers and 2,000 players on a single shard. While they managed to hit 1,800 and even a full 2,000 players on some shards, I wasn't able to get into the game due to a lack of free habs, which was a bit frustrating. Other players reported interaction delays, desync, and the usual tram bugs. While these issues were disappointing, the fact that they managed to get so many players on a single shard is a big win for the future of large-scale gameplay in Star Citizen. Now, what came out of left field was that 4.0 was being tested in Evocati. We've been hearing a lot of buzz about Pyro and jump points, and here's what testers are saying. First, one of the major highlights has been the complete lack of interaction delay. Whether it's calling elevators or interacting with ship terminals, everything has been smooth and responsive. That's a major win for stability, and a great sign for when 4.0 opens to a wider audience. The jump points themselves have been a major talking point. Testers have described the sound and visuals as absolutely stunning, with many calling the experience incredible. However, there's a growing concern that these jump points could become repetitive over time. The jumps can last over a minute, and while that might be thrilling the first few times, it could start to feel tedious after repeated trips. Still, the visuals and immersion have blown people away, with testers describing the transitions as intense and exhilarating. Now, I wasn't able to gather a ton of information from Evocati testers, but I was able to confirm that contested zones are massive areas with large rooms and long hallways and many hidden puzzles to solve. One of the contested zones was discovered on Checkmate Station, where testers stumbled upon a drug lab behind massive doors. While the layout is said to be impressive, there were a few issues, invisible NPCs and old loot tables from Stanton still in use. There's clearly more work to be done here, but the potential for exciting PvE and PvP encounters is definitely there. One small but notable improvement has been that the lighting in the hangars is far better than it used to be, which improves the overall visuals within the hangars. Additionally, sounds aren't as messed up as they've been in previous tests, which is a relief for those of us who rely on audio cues for immersion. Testers have also reported that server errors were being resolved fairly quickly, which shows that CIG is making progress on stabilizing 4.0's performance. Overall, while there are still server crashes and client-side errors cropping up, especially during jump point transitions, the core design of Pyro and its systems feels solid. The Evocati tests are clearly laying the groundwork for something big, and it's exciting to see how far 4.0 has come. As we look ahead to CitizenCon and the exciting developments in Star Citizen, it's clear that 4.0 is steadily progressing. We've seen significant updates with 3.24.2, a deeper dive into server meshing, and some very promising results from the ongoing 4.0 Evocati testing. Each step forward brings us closer to the expansive universe that so many of us have been eagerly anticipating. With CitizenCon just days away, the next chapter of Star Citizen's development is right around the corner. Whether you're excited about Pyro, new gameplay features, or simply curious to see where CIG takes things next, this year's event promises to be one of the most important yet. And though I won't be watching live, I'll be catching up as soon as I can and bringing you all my thoughts. Now I want to hear from you. What are you excited for most at CitizenCon? What's your take on 3.24.2 and the server meshing tests? Let me know in the comments. Your insights always spark great discussions. And if you've been enjoying these weekly recaps, consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. Not only will you get access to exclusive content and perks, but you'll also help keep the community growing. There's plenty more coming, including more giveaways. Don't forget to check out the details for the Drake Cutter giveaway in the description. Plus, if we hit 7,500 subscribers by IAE, I've got something special planned that you won't want to miss. Your support makes all of the difference, and I'm grateful to every single one of you who tunes in each week, shares your thoughts, and helps shape this channel. Fly safe, pilots, and we'll see you in the verse. Avig out.